Imagine saving for 6 years. Overtime shifts, skipped vacations, cheap dinners, every extra dollar going into one account because one day you want to buy your first real home. That was Sarah and Mark. They were in their late 20s, living in a tiny Toronto condo that felt smaller every month. Sarah was 6 months pregnant, and the second bedroom they didn't have was becoming a daily reminder that time was running out. So when they found a detached brick home in Markham listed below market value, it felt like the break they had been waiting for. The house was clean, the street was quiet, the backyard had just enough space for a swing set, and the price was almost impossible to ignore. The listing agent explained that the seller was overseas and wanted a fast sale. No drama, no delays. The home was vacant, except for a quiet tenant who was still moving out. The seller wanted a clean offer, quick closing, and preferably no conditions. To Sarah and Mark, it felt intense but not unusual. In the GTA, good houses move fast. They had already lost 2 bidding wars. This time, they did not want to hesitate. During the showing, the tenant was polite. He opened the door, stayed mostly in the basement, and gave the place a sense of normal life. Nothing felt suspicious. In fact, it made the home feel more real. Their lawyer reviewed the documents. The seller's ID looked proper. The Zoom signing was quick, slightly blurry, but normal enough. The seller said the connection was poor because he was overseas. The paperwork moved through the system. The title transferred. The mortgage funded. And just like that, Sarah and Mark had keys. On closing day, they stood in the empty living room with takeout coffee and a small bottle of champagne. Sarah cried when Mark carried in the first box marked nursery. They had done it. Or at least they thought they had. 3 weeks later, Sarah was painting the nursery when she heard someone trying to open the front door. At first, she froze. Then the key turned again. The handle shook. Someone outside was clearly trying to get in. Sarah walked to the door, paint still on her hands, and opened it. An older couple stood on the porch with luggage beside them. The man looked confused. Then angry. "Who are you?" he asked. "And why are you in my house?" Sarah thought he had the wrong address, but he didn't. He and his wife had owned that Markham home for 27 years. They had been away for the winter, visiting family. Their house had no mortgage, no sale sign, no decision to sell, and now a pregnant stranger was standing in their hallway saying she had bought it. Within minutes, Mark was home. Then the police arrived. Then both sides pulled out documents. Sarah and Mark had land registry papers showing they had purchased the home. The older couple had decades of ownership records, showing the house had never been willingly sold. Both sides were shaking. The police looked at the paperwork and said the words nobody in that room expected to hear. "This appears to be a civil matter." That was the moment the dream became a nightmare. Their lawyer began making calls. The real seller, the one on Zoom, could not be reached. The bank account where the money had been sent was already empty. The tenant from the showing had vanished. The phone numbers were disconnected. The IDs that had looked perfect were fake. The seller had never existed. Someone had stolen the real owner's identity, used forged documents, placed a stand-in tenant in the house, pushed for a fast sale, and used the digital closing process to move everything through before anyone noticed. Sarah and Mark had not bought from the owner. They had bought from a ghost. And the cruelest part was that they were not the only victims. The older couple had lost control of their home. Sarah and Mark had lost their down payment, their certainty, and potentially the place where their baby was supposed to come home. Their lawyer explained that title fraud does not always get fixed quickly. There can be court proceedings, insurance claims, legal fees, and months of uncertainty. In some cases, innocent buyers and innocent owners are left fighting over a home neither side stole. Sarah broke down at the kitchen table that night. "We did everything properly," she said. "We had a realtor. We had a lawyer. We got a mortgage. We signed the documents. What else were we supposed to do?" That question is what makes title fraud so terrifying. This is not someone falling for an obvious email scam. This is the real estate system being manipulated by people who understand exactly where the weak points are. They know buyers are under pressure. They know underpriced homes attract urgency. They know remote signings can reduce friction. They know that mortgage-free homes can be attractive targets because there is no lender watching the title. But buried inside Sarah and Mark's closing file was one document they barely remembered signing, an owner's title insurance policy. At the time, it had felt like just another closing cost, another line item, another fee in a pile of fees. Now, it became the one thing standing between them and complete financial ruin. The title insurance company stepped in. Lawyers were appointed. The claim process began. The real owner's title had to be restored. Sarah and Mark's financial loss had to be addressed. It was not instant, it was not painless, but it meant they were not alone in a legal fight that could have cost more than they had left. Months later, Sarah and Mark were not in the nursery they had painted, but they were not bankrupt. They had learned something most buyers never think about until it is too late. In real estate, fraud does not always look like fraud. Sometimes it looks like a clean listing, a polite tenant, a seller on Zoom, a lawyer's approval, a successful closing, and a key that works for 3 weeks. For Toronto and GTA buyers, the lesson is not to panic. It is to slow down when a deal feels too perfect. Ask why the price is low. Ask why the seller is rushing. Ask who verified the identity. Ask what title insurance actually protects. Because in today's digital real estate world, you do not always lose a home because someone breaks a window. Sometimes you lose it because someone steals a name. And by the time you realize the seller was fake, the money may already be gone.